Hi guys, welcome to The Hard Line. My name's Lucy and I'm here with my three guests today, Ed, Kim and Ryan. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Kim, if we start with you.
Hi, I'm Kim Johnson. I'm from Women Rugby Club. My main role there is as head coach of the women's team. But like many people within rugby clubs, I do have my fingers in a lot of pies. So, but my main interest is in girls and women's rugby.
Fantastic.
Hi, I'm Ed Marsh. I'm Director of Rugby and Head Coach at Mitcham and Carshalton Rugby Club. And part of my remit is to look after the development of the women's game.
Brilliant.
Hiya, I'm Ryan from Beck Old Boys and Beck Bells. I'm the club captain there and I help manage the Bells team.
Fantastic. I'm going to run through some particular themes today with the big overarching theme of why you started a women's team. All three clubs are relatively new or slightly further down in their journey. Kim, what was the decision after having such a strong men's team and strong minis team? What was the decision when you started out to start a women's team? Why?
Well, actually, Camberley have quite a long history of women's and girls rugby, which over the last probably 10 years, with the uptake, which is brilliant, of new clubs and, you know, the influx of numbers that we've seen, there just wasn't really the people within the club to continue it. So sadly, our senior women's team and our girls teams faded out. And then I stepped in.
And what year did you start back up?
Oh, we're a pioneering club way back in the 1990s. And that's where my introduction to rugby actually was just as a favour. I was a bar lady at the local rugby club. My bar manager was absolutely desperate to get her boots on and join the guys, so to speak, on the field. I was a captain of a women's pool team. I got my pool team to come along on an open day. Two of us stayed, and to be honest, the rest is just history. I've had a playing career and a coaching career, but that introduction to rugby is actually just given me just the best times of my life, and it's just something I'm very passionate about passing forward onto the next generation of women and girls.
Fantastic. So joining the networks that you've created with both Ed and Ryan as part of that sort of Surrey group. Ryan, you're slightly further along your journey than, say, Mitcham and Carshalton. What was the reason for Beck to start a women's team?
We didn't essentially set out, have a meeting and say we want to start a women's team. I think we've been always quite an open social club anyway, and it was a bit really supply and demand. We had girls that said they wanted to train with us, and we've always been open to that. And as things moved on, we got a few more women training with us, and we were approached by University, and they asked if they could join our training sessions as well, and it's just snowballed from there, really.
That is it. And Ed, tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, so M&C is going through a bit of a renaissance at the moment, really. We used to have over 250 teams at the club many years ago, and that used to include women. But over the years, you know, that fell away for whatever reason. So as the men's side started to grow, we just saw an opportunity to start getting women involved in the club, and we still had good local connections with some of the former juniors. And it's just starting to snowball now, and we're just starting to see existing players move into the area or move to the club. Great news, as well as people who have literally never played before at all. And we just wrap it all around the one club policy. So women's rugby is treated exactly the same as men. Same coaching, same support, same facilities. But we want to make sure that women's rugby is not an afterthought. It's absolutely paramount to us that it's completely equal to men's.
That brings me on to a very strong point, and Ryan, actually I'll raise this with you just because I know Beck very well. What are the learnings you can take from the men's squad when starting the women's side? What sort of did you learn in that process?
Well, we recently, before the women's had exploded as it has recently, about a year beforehand, we had a similar thing happen with the men's, where if we went back a few years ago, we may have, if we were lucky, 15 men down at training, and that changed to upwards of 50. So it was a real boom there, and that real boom showed that there was quite a variation of levels of people at training, and we found that our approach was attractive to people who had never played before. That really worked for starting the women's team as well, because it's similar to Ed. We had this approach of everyone can join in, everyone is treated the same. There aren't different levels. That has come with some hurdles as well, where you do have some of the first team players or aspirational first team players that get frustrated, and we've had to do other things in training to work those things out as well.
Cool. Kim, I'd love to hear from you because being sort of more established than both Beck and Mitcham, how have you found that journey of the women's team in starting it back in the 90s? It must have been quite an experience having, because rugby isn't the same as it was now.
No, absolutely not. And I just need to clarify there, our first team started with those pioneering years of the 90s. Then there was a void of almost 7 years. And so what we have now, which is our Camberley cocktail team, is the rebirth, the re-establishment of a women's team. So Camberley are very much in our developing, grassroots level. So exactly the same as what the guys are saying, actually. It was all about supply and demand. The club was asking for somebody to come step forward. As we all know, it's a big commitment. The situation arose that I was able to say yes with my fellow coach, Liz Frost, who her passion and enthusiasm for all things rugby completely overshines mine. And then it was a case of really gathering up the sideline mums as a starting point, starting with touch, word of mouth, development, getting the people down, and very much just facilitating what the girls, the women that were turning up, wanted. So we started very much with just non-contact rugby, and then as numbers developed and people were being attracted to us through rugby Pacific, the age demographic changed, what people were expecting changed, and therefore we've now morphed into a contact side.
Fantastic. And there's growing a side isn't easy, going from having one person interest to then having 10 to 20 to 30. What process have you gone through at Mitcham and Castleton to get through those stages and those sort of jumps?
Crying myself to sleep. It's quite a regular thing. I think for me, it probably runs quite similar to, so when I turned up at the club, I think the club was about 92 years old when I turned up, and there's about 6 guys left at the club total. I think one of the things I instigated, and we've now got 90 guys on the books, 90 girls and guys, it's incredible. But one of the first things I did is I just really instilled, you've got to train, because we'd have so many new people come down and they'd be 4 men and a dog and they wouldn't come back. So really getting people to commit is a big focus for me, because I think it was just last week we had a great training session and the girls loved it. And I just reiterated, it's because there's so many of you here tonight. We can do more. It's more exciting. And the new girls loved it, desperate to come back. So for me, there's always a threshold. You get over that 15 to 20 and then it starts rolling naturally. It's that, I remember night one with 7 or 8, 6, 7 girls down, and it kind of goes like this. And, those cold nights where there's 4 of you and it's like, oh, what are we doing? But you just got to persevere. You got to believe in the process. You've got to put And I think what we're quite good at is we'll put everything in place. So we'll have all the staff, all the facilities. We will put it there for you. So you just turn up and have a great time. And I think it's just coming up to the point where it's going to go over now, which is exciting, but it's hard work. It's been brutally hard work, harder than the men's, because the men's you have the, we have full fixture list for the first, the seconds, the development side. With the women's, we might have a touch game in 6 months' time as starting point. So what's at the end of the road? So as you move along that, you can create more opportunity for them, and they can see more coming their way, because some of the girls, as guys know, brand new, never picked up a rugby ball in their lives, and there might be 20, there might be 35, and some of them have been playing rugby since they were. Now you get girls who turn up, I've been playing for 10 years, I'm 23, so it's like brilliant. So the different levels as well make it more complex in how we treat it, but it's trying to roll up everything into that one club policy, and just trying to get them to buy in, and suddenly you have a senior leadership group, suddenly you have a captain, and it becomes a thing. They turn up, they're all wearing the same kit, it becomes a living, and there is a club there. It's not an idea, it's not a plan, it's there. And they take ownership, and that's really important. You see the girls start to take ownership of it themselves, and I think that is another big sort of tick in the box for me, is okay, we're starting to roll.
And how do you build that resilience in those early stages when the numbers are so small, and it can be quite frustrating? How, as a coaching team, do you build resilience to keep going?
Well, I think the main one is perseverance and positivity, and I imagine we've all been through that, and it's to believe that it is going to grow, because at that point, I imagine there are probably doubts that people do go, "Oh, is there any point? If there's 4 of you?" But as all of us sitting here, we know it was worth it. So. To believe in it and go forward, and I think I was even the numbers up. I think I was the 8th person, just so we had 4 on 4. So there was things like that. I can see in both your faces. We've all done it. It was the belief, and then you look back, and I've stood there with the other coaches, and we went, "There's 33 here tonight. We could do 15 on 15." And the shock when it all of a sudden happens, and it really is a snowball, because as Ed said, the importance of having people at training, the more people show up, the more worthwhile it is, the more things you can do. That's, I suppose, it's some belief, really.
It's that big catch 22, isn't it? Where the more people turn up and they go, "Oh, we're not doing enough exciting stuff," especially those who have played before. And you're going, "I know, but if you don't come back, I then have to recruit more." And it's trying to move the whole shit forward and just getting people to buy in and stay. So you get to that magical point where you go, the light bulbs go off, and you can see them going, "Brilliant. This is it."
Yeah. And Kim, what was the biggest hurdle that you faced when you sort of resurrected the women's side?
Ours was, to be honest, I think our biggest hurdle was actually the logistics within the club, getting the space to actually deliver what we needed to as the team grew. As the guys have just said, I would actually say 8 is the magic number. When you got to 8, it was like 4 on 4. We can actually, kind of have a decent competitive game. And as we grew, obviously, we needed more areas, a bigger area to train in. It's all worked out. It just meant a bit of compromise and talking within the club. I think that's in-house. Outside, it's the recruitment side of it. Women and girls rugby has just grown exponentially. I mean, goodness, fabulous. But I mean, for me, our nearest 7 clubs all have women's team. Our nearest 4 clubs, which are all in a 5-mile radius, all have a women's team. And they're luckily we're all at fairly different stages of development, although there's a few of us. So it's that recruitment, you know, what is going to make Camberley different? What is our niche? Why would people want to, you know, just go the extra 2 miles or a different direction to come to us? You know, so I think that's an ongoing, you know, recruitment is ongoing in women and girls rugby. We don't have the numbers, we don't have that depth, you know, that the male game, you know, is fortunate to have. So it's that continuous recruitment, word of mouth, what, you know, bringing them back. What are we doing? What's fun? What's, you know, what's the draw? So it's, you know, it's the same things across all sports. But I think, yeah, for women's rugby, it's a lot more challenging.
Absolutely. And on that point of recruiting, how have you found at Mitcham and Beck, how have you found the recruiting process? Because again, a bit like what Kim has said, you're in sort of in London, in central London, where everything's a bit more fluid. And certainly myself, when I've tried to find a rugby club, or if I've even supported recruiting, retaining someone, knowing that, particularly with Beck, you've got a club that's 100 metres down the road from you. How have you found recruiting in that kind of competitive environment?
Well, it's been mostly on social media. Tag rugby has been huge for us, really, as well. Word of mouth. Beck, as the men's club, have played always, I think, for the last maybe 9 to 10 years, had a mixed team in tag rugby. So we've had some connections there. We're used to being a very transient club. People tend to join us having moved to London. So we're geared up for that. We're ready. We understand that people will come and go. We also will try not to book fixtures in on a bank holiday weekend, because we know everyone's going home to see mum, dad, or whoever else, because they're not actually from London. It's also accepting that I suppose every player isn't maybe destined to be at your club. And although we'd love to have the best players ever, to actually say, look, maybe we should get in contact with another team, because you should go on. You know, you might be do better somewhere else here. And even accepting that someone needs to find the right place. I know Ed and I have been in contact recently, and we have someone that's training with both of us until she finds the club that she wants to be in. I think it's different. It's understanding. I think we certainly are in a slightly different scenario to Camberley, where you have more of a fixed location, and it's more likely that people are going to stay. We have people joining us, and they've gone, oh no, I've moved to another city, I'm gone. It's not to be upset by it.
Yeah, no, I agree. From MC, I think I work on a ratio of about 4 to 1. So every 4 people that get in contact, 3 will turn up, and eventually 1 will end up being a steadfast player. The other one will drift away, 1 will come once. Yeah, it's the same with the men's. You get the drift in London. I think we've worked really hard in our local community. So some of the cool players we just tapped up to start with, right? Men, get your girlfriends down. That was day one. Get your sisters down, get your mums down. Let's get this ship started and get it going. But you come up against all kinds of things. I had one the night we started. I messaged all the girls who said, "Yeah, I'm coming," and one of them replied, said, "Yeah, I'll be there." This was the day before. On the day, I chased up those who hadn't been. Oh, you couldn't come. You know, some no, I decided it's not for me. One person said, oh, I went back to university in Stoke. So yesterday you told me you were coming to training. so you have to just, people will forget, do their own thing. People are reliable, some are unreliable. But yeah, like Beck, social media, word of mouth, trying to make it a real destination club. So we're trying to put on as much as we can at the club with our facilities, and it's somewhere where people, we're starting to see the percentage tick up now of people who turn up, stay across the board, because suddenly they go, wow, your facilities are brilliant. Hopefully, the events are great. It's a destination club, if you know what I mean. So even on the edge of London, it's somewhere you've got to travel to. It's not kind of 2 minutes from the tube station somewhere. But that destination aspect is definitely coming into play now. People want to travel, and we get people from all over the south coming to us now.
Wonderful. And once you've got them in, you've got to retain them. And it sounds to me like you've now established quite a core centre of girls that are regularly turning up. How do you keep those particular individuals kind of involved and excited and sort of continuing to keep them engaged?
Yeah, I think, as mentioned earlier, just start to replicate, for me, under the one club policy, suddenly give them ownership. So the core girls senior leadership group start appointing captains, a women's club captain, start sort of giving women subcommittee memberships on the committee, just to start slowly building them through the fabric of the club and promoting them. And they just take ownership, and they start to really get involved. And I've seen 4 or 5 of them. And I say there's 4 or 5 of you now. Next year there'll be 10 or 12 of you that are absolutely running the ship. And there'll be 30, 40 of you. So just slowly giving them ownership and letting them run with it. Just like the guys' side, absolute parity on positions and all that jazz. And just really making sure they feel it's their club, it's their team, their squad, their training. Let them make decisions about small things and big things as well. Everything from picking kit to deciding on social events, just ownership.
Fantastic. Obviously we're now sort of slowly coming out of a pandemic, and games are becoming a bit more attainable for all of us, and I know Beck and Camberley have got one set up very soon. So once we've got these players now coming to training and we're building the squad, we've obviously now got to prepare them for a game. And we've got to get them ready for actually playing rugby. How have Camberley and Beck prepared the teams for the games coming up? And also, how have you gone about getting those games in the schedule?
Well, at Camberley, we've actually stayed together throughout the whole of the season. Every Wednesday's training day. So when we've been allowed to be on the field, we've been on the field. When we haven't, we've been online. This would have been our first year as a league team, so we were kind of at that stage. So our preparation has kind of already started from about January online. Very new to all of us. We kind of started delivering Rugby Pacific, so videos, team chats, bite size analysis, not at our level, I have to say. YouTube is fantastic, and so is Zoom. And then we'd be back on the field for 3 weeks. So actually we haven't done any contact yet. I'm very, very aware of injury prevention is actually a top priority. Equally, and it's really interesting, the different personalities and what their feelings and attitude is to coming back. A lot of nerves, a lot of hesitation. So generally, this time for us at Camberley, we are facilitating rugby to the individual. For those that want to wrap up the season, non-contact, continue with Ready for Rugby, ball handling skills. Obviously, we can still do unit stuff, but maybe even bag work, but not body on body. That is completely fine. And then for those diehards, I signed up for contact. Give me that bag. I've got my gum shield. And there's there's a number of them, not as many as you would think. Then we're starting now to, actually prepare them for the possibility of contact games in May. So our fixture secretary, as soon as the, gov.com announced what was we were going to be allowed to do, we basically actually just reaffirmed games that we'd had scheduled back in November. Okay. So we contacted the teams that we knew are of our level, people that we like old Beck Spells, fabulous team, with very similar personalities, similar development level, and then we've just put fixtures in. Those fixtures will actually be played according to the mood, the tone of the players, and obviously the opposition, and whatever that is, that's the way that we'll play it. It's a case of rounding up the season properly and then easing everybody in and, getting our boots on properly going forward, I think, for September. Right now, it's just, let's just ease out, just make sure everyone's happy.
Absolutely. Have you done the same at Bells?
Very similar. Very similar. We have done a bit of contact. I think we're in a slightly different. I think we're in a slightly different position with regards to our pitches. We no longer have our pitches now, so we tried to get in what we could with all our equipment. We lose our pitches to cricket at this time every year, so we got them back for 2.5 weeks. And now we have some space rented on Clapham Common in prime location, but it's limited to what we can do there. So we had to get a bit of work in at our ground. But there are some players that, as you said, Kim, ready. When is it true contact starting? They can't wait because it's been so long. And then there are some players that are still a bit nervous. I think very similar to Kim, we're in a good place there. We don't have the luxury of having our grounds though, so we had to speed things up a bit.
And coming through that preparation and playing the games, however long this season ends up being before we then go into pre-season, we're obviously looking at league structures. And with that, I know Bells are going into an Inner Warrior and so are Camberley. Kim, do you want to tell us a little bit more about the Inner Warrior camp that you're running?
I think Ryan's going to say, sorry, Lucy, to interrupt.
I'll let you say
I think Ryan is going to say the same thing. There's been a little restructure over the season. And basically it's been the RFU have now reinstated NC3. So they took away NC3 and introduced the Inner Warrior series, which obviously was to help ease and develop brand new sides. I think the Inner Warrior series is still going to continue, but I'm sure I just saw Ryan's face, so I'm going to make the assumption that, like us, we're now going to be going into an NC3 league come September 2021.
Well, we've requested. We haven't been told yet that we will, but I think the teams that we saw that were in that Inner Warrior series, it was to me it was clearly looked like a league anyway. And seeing the other teams that we'd met many of them actually at one of your Ready for Rugby tournaments. Yeah. So it really did look to an extent. I think they may have seen some sense that there was no reason to not call it a league. There's obviously enough players, enough teams there.
Yeah.
And Ed, is that the same for yourselves as well?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, go.
No, we are going to look to play to build it very gradually. come September. So we're not going to enter an official league, but we will look to play very similar teams. Just start off with very short contact games, mixed in with coaching. So essentially the reverse of what we'll be doing with Ryan and Beck Bells, where they've never even played a touch game. So they're going to play a touch game and then look to do like a joint contact clinic between us, and actually kind of flip that round where we do a joint short contact game come October time, and then do a contact clinic as well on top of that. So just build and build and build them, and start to look around Christmas at actually playing a full game.
Sorry, I'll come back to the point you were going to say, Kim.
Oh yeah, I was just going to pick up on what Ryan said about the Inner Warrior Series league. Yes, it is a league, but it's about. I mean, Ed, actually, come Christmas, it might be perfect for your girls as well. But it's more of a what's the word I'm trying to think of? It's kind of more of a facilitated structure. So that you've got the structure of being able to come in, play, get teams that are similar to yourself, whether that be sevens, whether that be cross rugby sevens, whether that be 10-a-side or 12-a-side. It's very much about just giving a structured organisation where new teams can come in and basically just feel where they are, get their feet into, teams quite often. I mean, Ed's already touched on this, which was, you get people coming to training and enjoying training. They come there. Rugby's very social. That's our niche at Camberley. That's why people go past other clubs, because they can see that we're a very social bunch. We take our rugby seriously, but we enjoy our off the pitch as well. But sometimes people just want rugby for that. There's a lot of people that don't want to travel. There's players that aren't actually in a position to commit to a league structure. And I think the Inner Warrior Series is definitely, that's a great starting point for a development team. So had this year not been this year, that's where we would have started. I think given the year we have, we've actually gained players throughout this tricky year. And I know we're not unique there. A lot of other clubs have. People are looking for that community. They're looking for that outside fitness. They're looking to do things differently. And again, like most development sites, like Ryan and Ed was talking about earlier, we are a mixed bag. And I think we're just ready to actually just take it on. We're ready to commit to a league structure, and we have the players, or the hardcore players that take that on.
I think this is a really important point, actually. It's a problem I had with the men's 2 years ago when we were in Surrey Foundation. So we dropped out of the leagues because there was no one left at the club, and we got ourselves together, got a team together, and in the Surrey Foundation leagues with the men's. And I felt that from word go, half the teams were not ready to play fixtures. So whilst we were slugging our guts out building a squad every Thursday, sorry guys, we can't play you on Saturday, we lost so many games. So I'd rather we had less games with teams who are ready at the right level to play. That means so much more to players, because we can work and work and work on building squads. But if the games are cancelled every 5 minutes, if there's huge mismatches, it puts people off straight away. So a lot of thinking needs to go into how these leagues are run, and the timing from people like us on the call now about when to put teams into the right games or the right leagues is absolutely pivotal, especially to women's rugby development at the moment.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
It's hugely impactful to the growth as well. No, I was just saying it's being able to know those league structures and understand whether it's something you do or don't want to do is hugely impactful to the growth, because you're going to get girls who will then start playing and go, oh, our game's been cancelled every Saturday. So actually retention then becomes a problem. So all these things have a knock-on effect to other parts as well.
100%. I mean, I said about the foundation league for the men's, our guys wouldn't mind if you cut the league in half and played each other 4 times. So you guaranteed fixtures for everyone, and it was properly done at the right level, opposed to just trying to fill the league with teams for whatever reason when it doesn't benefit. It really damaged us 2 years ago. Like, we lost players who didn't want to stay because there was no games. It was a nightmare. So with the women's, it's exactly the same. We need to structure it really, really well. And there needs to be a lot of conversation with people like Ryan and Kim and myself about how we structure those, and not just be given the structure and say, there you go. Because we know the girls, we talk to the girls every single day.
I would actually just jump in there though, Ed. And I think there is I think the actual women's league structure is quite well thought out. I think the Inner Warrior series has given that, because we can all play friendlies anytime we want, and that's actually where myself and Ryan, it's literally just like, especially with social media, throwing things out on Facebook, and then word of mouth, it's like, oh, I hear you're having a tournament, and come along, and making sure that you're playing people of a similar level, and then if not, just confirming with the clubs that you're playing do have the same ethos. Our first playing season at Camberley, we played Newbury, and was our first game, our Newbury twos, I have to say, and we also played Thurrock. Now, obviously, we're a development side, and both of those teams are, 4 or 5, very well established. But it was played in the right tone, context. We put parameters in beforehand. If this should happen, this is how we will adapt it. If this should happen, we can, we can change it. And then I think, with that, it does actually bring on the development, because it's a little bit bookended, isn't it? Because the other side of it is you want the players, a lot of players like that, a structure. They're looking for regular games. So it's just kind of finding where your team balance is, and like you say, facilitating games. I mean, for me, I just think the same as anyone. People play rugby because they want to play. So whether that is, us and old Becks, getting together 4 or 5 times a year because we just know that we're a similar type of club, or hosting tournaments, or getting into a league, I think the more, you can actually deliver actual real games, that's how you bring your players on. That's how you generate the interest. And I think that is a big part of player retention.
Absolutely. And Ryan, but Kim touched on a point there about playing teams of differing levels. How important is it that the girls experience playing a team that's a little bit more experienced, where perhaps potentially they're coming off the pitch having lost the game? How important is that for them to learn and grow and develop as a team?
I think it's part of every sport. As I'm sure everyone else on this call, whether it's been in rugby or not, I've gone seasons with a school team or a club team where we really, we learn a lot of lessons, but we could appreciate the other team at what level they are, and learn from them, and decide if that's where we want to be. I think some of what Kim had just touched on actually was during this development stage. It is good for us to identify it's not 100% the level of the team we're playing against. It's sometimes identifying this club ethos of the other club. If they understand what level we're at and what level they are, and it is a little bit cliche, but the reality is, I think everyone who's on this call and many others, we essentially are looking for people to enjoy rugby, and there are some others that we would all love to win, but there are some others that outright want to win, and that's brilliant. but sometimes it's not going to be the right place in development. So there probably would be some teams we might hesitate in creating a fixture with and leave that later on till we are in a really established league and we have to actually play them to try and win. But we in the scenario where we've got fixtures or training fixtures with both Mitcham and Castleton and Camberley, we're all able to adapt those fixtures to what both teams and every player needs from it. What are we going to get out of it? At this stage, no one's going to get anything out of a 60-0 win. There's no benefit to anyone. But once you are in a league, those days will happen, and you will learn from them then. But maybe not right now.
Absolutely. So with all that being said, and obviously getting into a league, etc., Ed, what does the future look like for M&C and the women's team?
Oh, good question. So we will continue to grow numbers. I don't doubt that now. I think we're on the right trajectory. And I would say that come 2022, 23, which suddenly is really close. Crikey, who would have thought it? We will be looking to enter them into a full competition. I think the biggest thing for us at the moment is just we have such a massive breadth of capability. I mean, we've got players, like I said, we've been playing all the lives of players who have literally picked up a ball for the first time at the club 3 weeks ago. So we need to keep all of them interested and content with what we're doing, and start, like Kim said, the product essentially has got to be rugby matches. We need to put those on. We need to put them at the right level. But I think we will go from strength to strength. We started Project 100 players at the club 16 months ago when we had 9 registered. And we're almost there. So for me, I love to see 50 women out there training on Monday nights, and that's the plan. We'll stick to it. I'll try a lot more, but we'll get there.
I'm sure you will. And Kim, is that's a very sort of similar plan for Camberley? It's just purely growth.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we kicked off this season is our fourth season. I can't remember. It's all merging now. But we're just coming into our fourth season. I think we're ready to step into a league structure. That actually bodes well with our kind of our plan for women's rugby. And we've also kind of almost come full circle. We've got the numbers and the coaches to now actually facilitate non-contact rugby, as well as obviously committing and developing our competitive element through contact rugby. So that's that for us in our women's section. I kind of think that's where we are, and it's a case of just making that happen over the next 2 seasons.
And what about Beck? What does this look like for the Bells?
So plans over the next season would be retention. So we want to really try and have a high player retention, and it will be new for us to even identify what that looks like, what doing well is, and then the first season to establish ourselves in that league. I think the number one aim is obviously no cry-offs, to make sure we can, we're confident we will fulfill the season's fixtures. That would be the number one goal. And then probably the third goal is to identify that we've actually got some players we can already see that maybe we need to develop them and probably speak to some other clubs that they might need to go on to or whether they spend time developing with them and pop back to us, or we a tear in our eyes, say goodbye to them and on to better things. I think we need to be we certainly need to be aware of that there are some players that will need to go on, because we are a development team, and we'll get those variations in training.
Brilliant. And rounding off the podcast, I'm conscious we've been on here for quite some time. I'm going to come to the extremely important question, which is your grassroots rugby hero. And that can be anyone from your mum or your dad taking you to every game, or even someone at the club that you just think needs to have their name spoken just to get some credit. So I'll hand it over to Ed first, your grassroots rugby hero.
I'm going to get ribbed and taken apart for this. I'm not going to nominate myself. For me, I don't think I've ever come across anyone in my time in sport, even since a young boy, that has sacrificed so much. And it's actually our current chairman, Keir Waller. He became chair of our club. I think he was about 25 years old. He didn't want to do it. I think people will give me some plaudits for kind of developing the club, but I found him giving it life support. And without him, none of us would be here today. No women's rugby, no men's rugby. The gates would be locked. He didn't want to do it. It's absolutely thankless. And he's just kept the rugby club and the community alive. And I can't thank him enough for what he's done. And whenever he steps down, he'll probably step down before he's 30, which is ridiculous. Enormous plaudits to him and what he's done for the community and the club.
Brilliant. And Kim?
I'm going to shout out from my club, one of my fellow coaches, Debbie Hayden. We played together back in the day, back in the 90s. Side by side, we kicked off the original Camberley girls side. She went on to bigger and better things, rugby-wise. She went and played at Guildford for many years, and actually, she's just a complete legend when it comes to women's rugby. She was forced to hang her boots up over a season, and because of that, she's back at our club and has stepped into a coaching role. So we've kind of come full circle as a coaching pair, but she is somebody that has just been totally committed to women's rugby. She's a huge inspiration to so many adult girls that are now adult players, a couple of which are actually playing at international level, as well as inspiring girls to just stay in rugby, refereeing, and, as I say, coming back and delivering her knowledge and her passion back in once again to the next generation. So Debbie Hayden, Camberley Rugby Club, Camberley Cocktails legend. That's my name.
And Ryan?
So I'd have to say actually that the head coach of Beck Old Boys. So Tom is probably younger than about 30% of the people on the training pitch. And he's taken on that role of head coach of the entire club. And then as we were developing the Bell side, I don't think any of us expected the amount of commitment that we got from Tom. There was no expectation from him. We totally expected him to concentrate on his thing. But I think I can't really remember him missing a session. Mm-hmm. He's been there first. He's turned me and him at points have turned into near enough like bush mechanics with Diesel trying to get these lights going. He's always there first. He opens up, mm-hmm. and he's given so much to the Bell side. So yeah, well done, Tom.
Yeah, it's always good to hear about these people because they're such an important part of the clubs, and they're definitely sort of the heart of every club. And sometimes we forget to say thank you. Thank you guys for being on the pod today. It's been an absolute pleasure having a chat with you about all things new club and developing. And I wish you all the best growing your teams. And I'm sure I'll see many of you on the pitch in the next couple of months. But thanks so much for joining me. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Thanks, Lucy.